The girl in front of me, Wendy Young, was as plain as her soul was twisted. Desperate for attention, she forged a love letter, framed me for writing it, and then publicly humiliated me. She threw a cup of cold water in my face in the middle of the crowded student center, screaming that I was a creep trying to get with a princess. From that day on, my reputation was destroyed. Everywhere I went, people whispered and pointed. They called me the hot guy with garbage taste. It followed me like a shadow until my mind finally broke and I walked into traffic. Then I opened my eyes. Somehow I was back. Back in that exact moment, the cold water still dripping from my hair, her shrill voice echoing in my ears. This time, there would be no explanations. Only revenge. This time, I would make her pay for everything. Chapter 1. Leo, take a good look at yourself. You really think you're good enough to write me a love letter? You're so far out of my league, it's pathetic. You're disgusting. The ice-cold liquid hit my face at the same time as the sharp, cruel insults, instantly blurring my vision. Water streamed through my hair, down my cheeks, and dripped onto the open textbook on the table, soaking the pages. For a split second, there was dead silence. Then, the student center erupted in a chorus of laughter and hushed gossip. Whoa, Wendy Young is claws. Is that for real? The campus king wrote her a love letter? No way. Does Leo have some kind of weird fetish? He's hot, but his taste is trash. Haha. I was frozen. Not because of the sudden, brutal humiliation, but because I knew this scene. I had lived it before. The screech of tires, the blinding glare of headlights, the full-body agony of being shattered, and the whispers that haunted me even as I died, the endless loop of garbage taste. Fragmented images exploded in my mind. But I was dead, wasn't I? I snapped my head up and saw her standing there, Wendy Young, barely 5 feet tall and built like a cinder block. She stood there, face mottled with freckles, trying to pull off an expression of disgust and superiority. But behind the act, I could see a flicker of deep-seated insecurity and a sick, triumphant glee. She was clutching a piece of pink stationery, which she slammed down on my table. Seriously, a love letter? Who does that anymore? It's so cheesy. You want to date me? Get in line. Maybe in your next life. My eyes flickered from the so-called love letter to the faces in the crowd around us. Shock, mockery, and pure, unadulterated schadenfreude. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from fear or embarrassment, but from the sheer shock and the volcanic rage that threatened to erupt from my soul. I was reborn to the exact moment my reputation was murdered, the event that would indirectly lead to my death. Last time I had panicked. I was speechless, desperately trying to explain that I didn't write the letter, but no one believed me. In fact, my frantic denials were twisted into proof of my guilt. They called me a coward who couldn't own up to his actions, a gaslighter who messed with a girl's feelings and then tried to deny it. The labels creep and garbage taste stuck to me like glue. I lived under a cloud of judgment and suspicion until my mind finally gave out and I stumbled in front of that truck. A cold, venomous hatred coiled around my heart. Wendy Young, just because you're unattractive, insecure, and twisted, you thought you could drag me to hell just to get a taste of the spotlight. This time, you will not decide my fate. You want to frame me? I'll make you pay a price you can't even imagine. In an instant, I shoved every emotion down, locking it away. I took a deep breath. The sting on my face and the cold dampness of my shirt were a sharp reminder. This was real. I was back. I didn't jump up and argue like last time. I didn't frantically wipe the water from my face. Instead, I slowly, almost calmly, raised a hand. I used the sleeve of my university sweatshirt to deliberately wipe the water from my eyes, clearing my vision. My silence and composure seemed to unnerve the crowd. The laughter died down, replaced by a strange, expectant quiet. Winnie hadn't anticipated this reaction. She was expecting me to freak out, to deny everything. My calm threw her off balance, but she doubled down on the insults. What? Nothing to say. Keck out your tongue now that you've been exposed. Crack. I swung my arm in a wide arc and slapped her across the face. Then, I lifted my gaze, my eyes dark and empty, and just stared at her. I didn't say a word. The slap stunned her into silence. She stumbled back, blinking for a full 5 seconds before her hand flew to her cheek. You hit me. Was I wrong to call you out?" She shrieked, her voice more scared than angry. I ignored her. I took out my iPhone, angled it just right, and quickly snapped several close-up photos of the letter on the table, capturing the key paragraphs and the crudely forged signature, Leo Vance. The handwriting was a pathetic imitation, full of obvious flaws. Just then, the bell rang, signaling the end of the lunch hour. Our faculty advisor, Mr. Davison, happened to be walking by. He saw my drenched state and the tense atmosphere and frowned. "What's going on here?" Wendy immediately seized the chance to play the victim. "Nothing, Mr. Davison. Leo just accidentally spilled his water." As she said it, she snatched the letter off my table and shoved it into her pocket. The other students exchanged knowing glances. Mr. Davison looked at us suspiciously, but with the bell ringing, he didn't press the issue. He just told me to get cleaned up and headed off. I silently pulled out some napkins and began wiping down the table, my face a mask of indifference, as if none of it had anything to do with me. But no one could see the storm raging inside me. No one knew that beneath the calm exterior, a heart bent on vengeance was beating furiously. "Just you wait, Wendy. This time, I won't rush to defend myself. You want to use me to get attention? Fine. I'll play along. I'll make sure everyone on campus knows how the campus king supposedly chased after you, only to be shot down in flames." My fists clenched, my nails digging into my palms. Let's let this play out, Wendy. Just wait for it. Chapter 2. The final bell was like a starter pistol, and the classroom exploded with noise. Countless eyes, some openly, some secretly, darted in my direction, followed by a wave of whispers. I ignored them, my face impassive as I packed my bag. My still damp hair and shirt collar were a constant reminder of what had happened. "Leo, you okay, man?" My friend Jake Miller slid into the seat next to me, his voice low, his face with a mix of concern and utter disbelief. "That letter. For real. Since when are you into that?" I met his eyes. In my past life, Jake was a decent friend. He tried to defend me at first, but eventually the social pressure got to him, and he drifted away. Right now, though, his concern was genuine. I forced a bitter, awkward smile. My voice was quiet, but loud enough for the eavesdroppers nearby to hear. "If I said I didn't write it, would you believe me?" Jake hesitated, scratching his head. "But the letter itself. You're not into girls built like refrigerators, are you?" I cut him off, my tone self-deprecating. "I don't know what happened. I guess it's just my lucky day." As I spoke, I let my gaze drift toward Wendy's desk. She was surrounded by a small group of girls, gesturing wildly, her voice shrill and loud, making sure everyone could hear her dramatic retelling. "It was so gross. You should have seen what he wrote. Your eyes are like stars. Ugh." As if I told him where he could stick it and threw my water right in his face. You have to put guys like that in their place, you know? The girls around her offered exaggerated praise. "You're so brave, Wendy." "Exactly. He needs to learn his place." "But Leo Vance is like really hot," one girl said timidly. "Why would he?" Wendy pounced on her like a cornered animal. "What does being hot have to do with anything?" "So what if he's hot? He still wants me. He's a creep. For all we know, he's got some weird secret fetish. Are you jealous or something?" Even she seemed to realize how flimsy that sounded, so she quickly raised her voice to cover it. "Anyway, I would never date a guy who can't even own up to what he did." I looked away, a cold smile on my lips. Pride comes before the fall. I let out a heavy, theatrical sigh and slung my backpack over my shoulder. Whatever. The more I deny it, the guiltier I'll look. I'm gonna go wash my face. I stood up and walked away, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on my back, the whispers intensifying behind me. "He actually looks pretty torn up about it." "Well, yeah, he got shot down. It's embarrassing." But when he seemed so sure of herself, who knows? Maybe there's more to the story. Perfect. The rumor mill was churning, just like last time. Everything was going according to plan. As I reached the classroom door, I ran into Emily Carter, the class president. She was a quiet, principled girl who, in my past life, had never joined in the gossip and had even tried to shut down the more vicious rumors. "Leo," she called out, stopping me. She held out a small pack of tissues, her expression sympathetic. "Here, you should dry off." "Thanks," I said, my voice sincere. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. I don't think you're the kind of person who would write a love letter to Wendy Young. If you need someone to vouch for you like that you were in the library studying all night, I can. A flicker of warmth went through me, but I shook my head. I appreciate it, Emily, but it won't do any good right now. People will believe what they want to believe. I gave her a wry smile. The hot guy falling for the cinder block. It's a story that's too good to be true and too juicy to ignore. Emily frowned and nodded. Well, just be careful. I believe you. She gave me a small smile and hurried away. In the hallway, everyone was staring. Look, that's him. Leo Vance, from junior year. The one who wrote the letter to that troll. Seriously? Wow, what a waste. I heard she threw water on him in front of everyone. Total social suicide. All those good looks, and not a single brain cell. I kept my head down and walked faster, playing the part of the humiliated, cornered victim who had no way to fight back. When students from other classes asked what happened, I just shook my head vaguely. Don't ask. It wasn't me. Ugh, just forget it. That half-denial, that hint of a secret, was like gasoline on a fire. The rumors spread faster and got wilder. By the afternoon, the story had evolved. Campus King Leo Vance was obsessed with Wendy Young, but she rejected him. He wouldn't take no for an answer and started harassing her, so the goddess had to teach him a lesson with a cup of ice water. With every retelling, I was dragged deeper into the mud, and Wendy was elevated higher and higher. She was clearly reveling in the attention. She walked with a new swagger, her chin held high, as if she really were a goddess being pursued by a desperate suitor she couldn't care less about. After school, I ran into her at the bike racks. She was with another girl, and when she saw me, she spoke in a stage whisper, just loud enough for me to hear. So annoying. He's like gum on my shoe. I can't get rid of him. You should really take a hint. I paused, then slowly looked up at her, my expression completely neutral. My direct gaze made her uncomfortable. She squared her shoulders. What are you looking at? Yeah, I'm talking about you. Stay away from me from now on. Suddenly, I smiled. It was a strange, pitying, almost mocking smile. Wendy, I said, my voice quiet but perfectly clear, are you having fun with your little show? She froze, the smugness on her face cracking. What? What are you talking about? Nothing, I said, wheeling my bike past her. My tone was light, almost bored. I just think you went to a lot of trouble to direct this little drama. The audience seems to be eating it up. Without a second glance at her shocked and suddenly panicked face, I got on my bike and rode away. The first thing I did when I got home was back up the photos of the love letter to the cloud and send a copy to a secure, rarely used email account. Staring at the photo of the clumsy, forged handwriting, a cold smile spread across my face. Enjoy your moment in the spotlight while it lasts, Wendy. I'm just waiting for the hype to reach its peak. What are you waiting for, Wendy? 3 days passed. The rumors had taken on a life of their own, snowballing into a dozen bizarre and outlandish versions of the story. Walking across campus felt like running a gauntlet. I could feel every stare, every whisper, every mocking sneer. Someone had even started calling me the Toad Prince. I maintained my silence, affecting a withdrawn and defeated posture, perfectly playing the part of a victim crushed by gossip he couldn't fight. Wendy, meanwhile, was thriving. She was completely lost in the goddess fantasy she'd created for herself, basking in a level of attention she had never known. She even started ordering me around in class, as if I were genuinely a lovesick puppy trailing at her heels. The time was right. That afternoon, our faculty advisor, Mr. Davison, held a mandatory class meeting. The topics were boring, and most of the students were zoning out, their eyes occasionally flicking between me and Wendy, exchanging smirks. Wendy sat near the front, her back ramrod straight, as if she were a celebrity. After finishing his announcements, Mr. Davison closed his notebook and asked his usual closing question. Does anyone have any other issues to discuss? The room was silent, and then I raised my hand. Every head in the room swiveled toward me, their expressions a mixture of surprise and greedy anticipation. Mr. Davison looked taken aback. He clearly hadn't expected the quiet, defeated student to speak up. Yes, Leo, go ahead. I stood up, my eyes fixed on Mr. Davison, ignoring everyone else. I held my iPhone in my hand. Mr. Davison, I have a very serious issue that I need to report to you and the university administration. It has caused severe damage to my reputation and my mental well-being, and I believe I may need to seek legal counsel to protect myself. My voice was clear and steady, laced with the exhaustion and resolve of someone pushed to their breaking point. It was a complete departure from the silent, withdrawn person I had been for the past 3 days. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was stunned, including Mr. Davison. A legal counsel? He pushed his glasses up his nose, bewildered. Leo, what on earth is so serious? Wendy whipped her head around, a flash of panic in her eyes, quickly masked by a defiant sneer. Leo, what are you trying to pull now? Are you still not over it? I ignored her completely. I unlocked my phone and held it up for Mr. Davison to see. Displayed on the screen was a high-resolution photo of the love letter. Mr. Davison, 3 days ago, Winnie Young stood up in front of our classmates and claimed I wrote this graphic love letter to her. Based on that claim, she threw a cup of water in my face and publicly humiliated me. I'm sure you've heard the rumors. Mr. Davison looked uncomfortable. Of course, he'd heard. He had probably dismissed it as petty student drama. He nodded slowly. I did hear something about that. But Leo, relationship issues. I cut him off, my voice hardening. The issue, Mr. Davison, is that I did not write this letter. You're lying, Wendy shrieked, jumping to her feet, her face turning crimson. You have proof. Are you still trying to deny it? Proof. I let out a cold, sharp laugh, my eyes locking onto hers. Wendy, the proof you're referring to is this pathetic forgery with terrible handwriting, full of grammatical errors, where even my own name is misspelled. I zoomed in on the signature. Mr. Davison and everyone else, please take a look. This is from my homework, I said, pulling a graded quiz out of my textbook and holding it up next to the phone. And this is my signature. Does that look like it was written by the same person? A murmur rippled through the classroom. Whoa, it really doesn't look the same. Leo's handwriting is kind of messy, but it's strong. The writing on that letter looks like a child's scribble. Yeah, the difference is obvious. Winnie's face went pale. Her voice grew shrill. You must have changed your handwriting on purpose. You wrote it, and now you're too scared to admit it. Change my handwriting? I asked, as if I just heard the most ridiculous thing in the world. So, you're saying that to write you a love letter, I would first have to invent an entirely new, uglier style of handwriting. Does that make any logical sense to you, Wendy? Before she could spew any more nonsense, I turned back to Mr. Davison, my tone firm and unwavering. Sir, this isn't a simple misunderstanding between students. This was a calculated act of defamation. Wendy Young fabricated evidence and publicly spread false information to deliberately destroy my character. This has caused extreme damage to my reputation and my mental health. People on campus are calling me the Toad Prince. I can't study, I can't focus, I can't live my life. My voice was thick with suppressed rage and a hint of a tremor, making it all the more convincing. I could see expressions of sympathy and understanding dawning on my classmates' faces. Mr. Davison's expression had turned grim. He was closely comparing the signature on my phone with the one on my quiz, his brow deeply furrowed. The truth was undeniable. Wendy Young, his voice was stern. What is the meaning of this letter? Wendy was completely flustered, her eyes darting around frantically. It was just a joke? Yeah, a joke. I didn't know he couldn't take a joke. A joke. My voice boomed through the silent classroom. Forging a letter, throwing water on me in front of everyone, calling me a toad, trying to get with a princess, and turning me into a campus-wide laughingstock. That's your idea of a joke? Wendy, don't I think the price of your joke is a little steep? I faced Mr. Davison again, my voice like steel. Sir, I cannot accept this kind of malicious joke. I can't forgive it. To clear my name once and for all, I demand that we involve the police and request a professional handwriting analysis. Let the law determine whether this was a joke or a crime. The police! Wendy screamed, the color draining from her face, leaving it a sickly, chalky white. Mr. Davison was shocked. Leo, the police. Isn't that a bit extreme? Your classmates. Maybe we can handle this internally. We'll have Winnie give you a formal apology. An apology? I shook my head, my resolve absolute. Sir, if apologies fixed everything, we wouldn't need police. This has gone far beyond what a classroom apology can fix. The damage to my name can't be erased by a few empty words. I need a legally binding conclusion that proves to everyone that I was framed. I raised my iPhone, and in front of the entire class, I dialed 9-1-1. Hello. Yes. I need to report a crime. I'm a student at Northwood Institute of Technology. Someone has fabricated evidence to publicly defame and harass me, causing severe damage to my reputation. The entire classroom was deathly silent, the only sound my calm, clear voice reporting the incident to the dispatcher. Wendy's legs gave out, and she collapsed in her chair, her face a mask of pure terror and disbelief. She had never, in her wildest dreams, imagined it would come to this. The way my classmates looked at me had changed completely. The mockery was gone, replaced by shock, sympathy, and even a little bit of awe. They finally understood. I wasn't a pushover. I was just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. After hanging up, I calmly told Mr. Davison, "Sir, the police are on their way. Until they get here and the truth is revealed, I expect Wendy Young and her so-called evidence to remain in this classroom." Mr. Davison opened his mouth, then closed it. Faced with my unyielding attitude, clear logic, and the fact that I had already called the police, he had no choice but to nod grimly. The sound of a distant siren grew closer and closer, like a funeral bell tolling for Wendy Young's pathetic, desperate charade. I looked at her, her face ashen and lifeless, and felt nothing but ice in my veins. The game was just getting started. The prize for your joke, Wendy, is far higher than you think. The air in the classroom was thick and still. Outside, the wail of a police siren grew louder until it stopped directly below our building. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway. Each step seemed to land like a hammer blow on Wendy Young's heart. Her face had gone from pale to a ghastly gray, and she was visibly shaking. Two uniformed police officers, guided by a campus security guard, stepped into the room. The officer in the lead was older, with a stern, experienced face. His sharp eyes scanned the tense scene. "Who called 911?" he asked, his voice calm and authoritative. I immediately raised my hand. "I did, officer. My name is Leo Vance." Mr. Davison hurried forward, wringing his hands. "Officers, I'm the faculty advisor for this class, Mr. Davison. I think there might have been a bit of a misunderstanding between two of my students." "It's not a misunderstanding, sir," I said, my voice firm as I cut him off. I turned to the police. "Officer, I want to file a report. This student, Wendy Young, forged a document to publicly accuse me of harassment. She used it to humiliate me and has caused severe damage to my reputation. This is the evidence." I handed my phone over, showing the side-by-side comparison of the letter and my actual handwriting. The older officer took the phone and studied it, his brow furrowed. The younger officer leaned in to look as well. Wendy, as if grasping at a lifeline, shot to her feet, her voice cracking with manufactured tears. "Officer, it's not like that. It was just a joke," he started. "He was bothering me." She was rambling, all of her previous arrogance gone. "A joke?" The officer looked up, his gaze piercing. "What kind of joke involves forging a document and publicly attacking someone's character? You claim he was bothering you. Do you have any proof of that?" I, Wendy stammered, at a complete loss for words. She could only repeat, "It was just a joke. He never even looked at me." The words tumbled out before she could stop them. A gasp went through the classroom. It was a confession. "Officer," I interjected calmly. "Wendy Young and I sit near each other in class, but we rarely speak. Anyone in this room can confirm that. I have no idea what she means by bothering her. As for the letter," I gestured to the phone, "I've provided a sample of my handwriting. The difference is clear. If necessary, I am willing to submit to a professional forensic analysis." The officer nodded, his expression hardening. The situation was crystal clear. He turned to Wendy, his voice now stern. "Ms. Young, I need you to tell me the truth. Forging someone's handwriting, fabricating a story, and publicly spreading it to damage their reputation is not a joke. It's called defamation, and it's a crime. You need to take responsibility for your actions." A crime? Wendy's composure finally shattered. Tears and snot streamed down her contorted face. I didn't know it was that serious. I just thought it would be funny. "Mr. Davison, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again." She turned to our advisor, begging for help. Mr. Davison looked pained. He sighed and said to the officer, "Officer, look, she's just a kid. She made a stupid mistake, and she knows it now. How about we handle this internally? The university can take disciplinary action. She can write a formal apology, and we can put a note on her permanent record. Involving the legal system seems like it could ruin her future." "Mr. Davison," I cut in again, my voice sharp and unyielding. "Are you saying that because she's a student and because she's sorry now, that the damage she did to me just disappears? Who's going to compensate me for the humiliation and stress I've endured for the past week? If I hadn't saved the evidence and called you, I would still be the campus laughingstock and the Toad Prince. Does my future not matter?" I stared directly at Mr. Davison and the two officers. "I stand by my decision. I need a formal, legal conclusion to this matter to officially clear my name. Otherwise, what's to stop her or anyone else from doing this again? An internal university punishment is not enough to undo the public damage she has caused." My words hung in the air, leaving Mr. Davison speechless. I saw several of my classmates nodding in agreement. "The young man has a point," the older officer said, giving me an approving look. He then addressed Mr. Davison. "Sir, it's our job to protect the legal rights of all citizens, including your students. The facts of this case are clear, and a crime may have been committed. We have to proceed according to the law. Wendy Young, you need to come with us to the precinct to give a formal statement." He took out an evidence bag, ashen-faced and trembling, when he numbly allowed him to retrieve the pink letter from her pocket and seal it inside. "No, I don't want to go to the precinct. I don't want to go," she whimpered, shrinking back as if she might collapse. "Please cooperate with us, ma'am," the younger officer said, his tone polite but firm. One on each side, the officers escorted the nearly catatonic Wendy out of the classroom. Mr. Davison, sweating profusely, hurried after them, muttering under his breath. The classroom was eerily silent. Everyone was in shock. The self-proclaimed victim they had been gossiping about all week had just been taken away by the police. And the guy they had all been mocking, the Toad Prince, was not only innocent but had just executed a cold, calculated, and devastating counterattack. I looked around at the stunned faces of my classmates, said nothing, and quietly returned to my seat. I didn't need to say another word. The moment the police had walked through that door, the court of public opinion had delivered its new verdict. Within hours, the entire campus was buzzing. Wendy Young from the junior class got arrested. She framed Leo Vance with that love letter. No way. I knew it. There was no way Leo would be into her. That's seriously messed up. Just because a guy isn't interested, you try to ruin his life? Good for Leo. Calling the cops was a total power move. Whoever was spreading those rumors about him having garbage taste should be ashamed. Wendy Young is not just ugly on the outside. She's rotten on the inside. The tide of scorn and mockery that had been drowning me for days instantly receded, turning into a tidal wave of condemnation aimed squarely at Wendy. My phone started buzzing with texts from people who had been avoiding me, all full of apologies and support. I watched the notifications pop up on my screen, a cold, hard smile touching my lips. Getting arrested was just the beginning, Wendy. Now, it's your turn to find out what social suicide really feels like. It took 5 days for the story to ferment into campus legend. The unofficial news that Wendy Young had been charged with criminal harassment and held for 72 hours before being released on bail spread like wildfire. While the university stayed silent, citing student privacy, the gossip network was far more efficient and far more brutal. Psycho chick who framed Leo Vance actually got arrested. She played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. Some people are just ugly to the bone. These were the whispers that greeted Wendy when she finally returned to campus. It was a gray, overcast afternoon. She walked with her head down, shoulders hunched, trying to make herself invisible. But her presence was a magnet for stares, whispers, and undisguised contempt. Look, that's her. Wow, she actually has the nerve to show her face. Stay away from her. She's crazy. The attention she had craved was now a poison-tipped spear, stabbing her with every step. Her face was pale, her eyes darting around, filled with a toxic mix of shame, resentment, and fear. There was no remorse. During a break between classes, I ended up in the men's room at the same time as she was walking past the entrance. When she saw me, she froze as if she'd been stung. Her eyes narrowed into slits of pure hatred. A couple of other guys at the sinks noticed us and immediately slowed down, their ears perked. Leo, Wendy's voice was a ragged hiss. Are you happy now? I have a criminal record. The whole school is laughing at me. Is this what you wanted? I slowly dried my hand with a paper towel and met her gaze in a mirror. Wendy, wasn't this the outcome you chose? The moment you forged that letter and threw water in my face, you sealed your own fate. It was a joke, she shrieked, her fists clenched at her sides. Did you have to call the cops? You ruined my life. How am I supposed to face anyone ever again? A joke, I scoffed, tossing the paper towel in the trash. You have an expensive definition of a joke, one that costs a reputation and a criminal charge. And let's be clear, you ruined your own life with your own stupid actions. Don't pin that on me. One of the other guys at the sink couldn't help himself. Dude, you did this to yourself, he said to her, his tone dripping with scorn. The cops arrested you because you broke the law. Why are you blaming him? Wendy's face flushed red, then went white. Cornered and humiliated, she could only glare at me, her chest heaving. The venom in her eyes was palpable. Fine, fine. You're tough, Leo. You think you've won? This isn't over. She spat the threat and stormed away. What's her problem? The guy muttered. Crazy. I knew this wasn't over. A personality like Wendy's, obsessive and delusional, would never learn from this. She would blame me for everything. Her threat was real. Sure enough, over the next 2 days, I noticed her watching me. She was quieter, more withdrawn, but I would often catch her staring at me from across a lecture hall with a cold, serpentine gaze. She was always furtively texting on her phone, a strange, shifty look in her eyes. You can't spend your life looking over your shoulder. If she wanted to escalate, fine. I'd give her the opportunity. On Friday, after my last class, I deliberately took my time packing up, leaving the classroom long after most other students had gone. I was wheeling my bike down the less-traveled service path behind the engineering building when I heard hurried, heavy footsteps behind me. Hey, Leo, stop right there. Right on cue. I stopped and slowly turned around. Wendy stood a few feet away, her face twisted in a manic, triumphant grin. Beside her were 2 guys who looked like they'd crawled out from under a rock. They were in their early 20s, wearing grimy tank tops that showed off cheap, faded tattoos. Cigarettes dangled from their lips as they sized me up, cracking their knuckles. Wendy, what is this? I asked, feigning surprise while my body tensed, ready for a fight. What is this? She cackled, her voice shrill. You made my life hell, so I'm going to return the favor. You got me arrested. You made me a laughingstock. Now I'm going to ruin you. Get him. Break his leg. Let's see how tough he is then, she screamed at the 2 thugs. One of them, a lanky guy with greasy, dyed blonde hair, flicked his cigarette away. You heard the lady, college boy, he sneered. You pissed off my friend here. Get on your knees and apologize, then let us rough you up a bit, and we'll call it even. The other one, a stocky guy with a buzz cut, took a menacing step forward. Or we can get rough, and trust me, we don't know when to stop. I looked at them, and instead of fear, I felt a flicker of contempt. Seriously, Wendy, these are the best you could find? You must have gotten them on sale. You arrogant bastard. My dismissive attitude clearly enraged her. You won't be smiling in a minute. Spike, Tank, get him, she screamed at the 2 thugs. My taunt worked on them, too. Cursing, they lunged at me. Spike threw a wild punch at my head while Tank went low, trying to tackle me. They were amateurs. I've been training in Krav Maga since I was 16. This was a joke. I pivoted, easily dodging Spike's punch. I grabbed his outstretched arm, twisted it, and drove my knee hard into his stomach. Oof! He let out a strangled gasp and crumpled to the ground, gagging. At the same instant, I used Tank's forward momentum against him, grabbing his shirt and hip-throwing him over my shoulder. Thud! He landed hard on the pavement with a sickening crack and lay there, groaning, the fight knocked out of him. The entire exchange took less than 10 seconds. The 2 tough guys who were so intimidating a moment ago were now twitching and groaning on the ground. The manic grin on Wendy's face had frozen, then shattered into an expression of pure, uncomprehending terror. She pointed a trembling finger at me, stammering, How did you? I dusted off my hands and took a slow step toward her. Stay away from me, she shrieked, scrambling backward. She tripped over her own feet and fell hard on the pavement. I stood over her, my shadow falling across her pathetic form. My voice was ice. I gave you a chance, Wendy. You got arrested. The whole school knew the truth. You could have learned from it, moved on. But you had to choose this. I pulled out my iPhone. The screen was lit up, the voice memo app running. From the moment you threatened me in the hallway to you ordering these idiots to break my leg, I've recorded everything. I held the phone up. Soliciting assault is a felony. Even attempt. This time, it's going to be a lot more than a 72-hour hold and a misdemeanor. When he finally, completely broke. No, that's not. I didn't. She sobbed, her body shaking uncontrollably. I didn't even look at her. I saved a recording and dialed 911 for the second time. Hello, I need to report an assault. I'm at the Northwood Institute of Technology on the service path behind the engineering building. I've been attacked by 2 men. I've managed to subdue them. The person who hired them is also on the scene. For the second time in as many weeks, the sound of sirens echoed across campus, growing closer. This time, Wendy didn't have the strength to stand. She just lay on the cold pavement, her eyes vacant and full of a soul-crushing despair. Her life, from this moment forward, had veered into a ravine from which there was no return, and she had driven it there herself. The interrogation room at the precinct was stark and cold, bathed in the flat, unforgiving light of fluorescent tubes. Winnie sat across from me, her face a gray, empty mask. She looked like a ghost, all the life drained out of her. In another room, I could hear the muffled sounds of her 2 hired thugs arguing with each other as the police questioned them. A detective with a world-weary face was taking our statements. Mr. Davison was there too, perched anxiously on a chair in the corner, looking sick to his stomach. Wendy Young, do you admit that you contacted these 2 individuals, known as Spike and Tank, and instructed them to assault Leo Vance? The detective asked, his voice a low monotone. Wendy gave a numb, mechanical nod. Yes. And what was your motive? I hate him, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He called the police on me, he got me arrested, and everyone at school was laughing at me. The tears started again, but this time they were tears of pure, hopeless despair. So you hired someone to get revenge? The detective pressed, a note of disbelief in his voice. Do you have any idea how serious this is? Solicitation to commit assault is a felony. This is far more severe than your previous charge of harassment. When he flinched as if struck, she couldn't speak. The detective turned to me. Mr. Vance, please describe the events one more time. Were you injured? I calmly recounted the entire incident, emphasizing Wendy's explicit instructions to break his leg and how the 2 men had initiated the physical attack. I finished by saying, I was not injured because I have several years of self-defense training, but their actions constituted a violent, premeditated assault. I have a recording of the entire conversation. I handed my phone over. The detective played the audio file. Wendy's shrill, hate-filled voice, get him, break his leg, filled the quiet room, followed by the thugs' menacing threats. The evidence was irrefutable. After they finished my statement, the detective asked Mr. Davison and me to wait outside. In a sterile hallway, Mr. Davison finally spoke, his voice strained. Leo, I never imagined it would come to this. Well, what he did was, it was horribly, terribly wrong. But she's still so young. If she gets a felony on her record, her entire life will be ruined. I just looked at him, saying nothing. My silence made him uncomfortable, but he pressed on. What if you were to sign a statement of forgiveness? We could frame it as a student conflict that got out of hand. The university will take the strongest possible action. I'll personally see to it that she is expelled. We just need to keep it out of the criminal justice system. It would be the generous thing to do. Can't you give her a chance to reform? Mr. Davison, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Do you remember what you said to me in the classroom? Your classmates. Let's handle this internally. He flushed, unable to meet my eyes. I rejected that path. I continued, and what happened? She didn't feel a shred of remorse. Instead, she doubled down and hired criminals to physically harm me. My voice turned to ice. If I didn't know how to defend myself, I would be in a hospital right now. Who would be talking to me about being generous then? Who would be giving me a second chance? I stared at him until he looked away. Is her future the only one that matters? Did she ever once think about ruining her own life when she was planning this? Did she give me a chance? Not when she forged the letter, not when she threw water on me, not when she spread rumors, and certainly not when she sent two thugs to break my leg. So why, now that she has to face the consequences, am I expected to be the one to show mercy? My questions came like bullets, leaving him speechless and defeated. Mr. Davison, I said, my tone softening slightly, but my resolve unbroken. I'm not a saint. I'm just a person defending his legal rights. Forgiving her is a matter for a higher power. My job is to make sure she faces judgment here on earth. This will not be settled out of court. I need everyone to understand that when you cross a line, there is a price to pay. This isn't personal anymore. This is about justice. Just then, the door to the interrogation room opened. The detective stepped out with a file in his hand. He looked from Mr. Davison to me. Leo Vance, we've completed our preliminary investigation. The charge is solicitation to commit aggravated assault. The facts are clear, and the evidence is conclusive. Although the assault itself was unsuccessful, the intent was malicious and severe. We will be referring this case to the district attorney's office. The two assailants will also be charged accordingly. He then looked at Mr. Davison. We will be sending a formal report to the university. I suggest you take appropriate disciplinary action. Mr. Davison just nodded grimly. There was nothing more to say. A few days later, an official notice was posted on the university's main bulletin board. Following a formal investigation, Northwood Institute of Technology has determined that student Wendy Young engaged in conduct that endangered the safety and well-being of another student. This includes defamation, harassment, and the solicitation of violence. These actions constitute a severe violation of the university's code of conduct. Effective immediately, Wendy Young is hereby expelled. The notice, stamped with the university's official seal, put a final, decisive end to the saga. The campus chatter about Wendy reached its peak, then slowly faded, her story becoming a cautionary tale. When people mentioned her name, it was with a shake of the head and a quiet, she did it to herself. As for me, the last traces of the Toad Prince stigma were gone, replaced by something else entirely. Handsome, calm, decisive, capable, and unyielding. Those are my new labels. I stood before the bulletin board, reading the notice, and felt a profound sense of peace. Your time here is over, Wendy, and your trial is just beginning. This time, no one can save you. Not Mr. Davison, not your parents, not anyone. Chapter 7. The case against Wendy Young for solicitation of assault moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. On the day of the trial, I appeared in court as the victim and key witness. The courtroom was solemn and imposing, the air thick with gravitas. Wendy was led in by a bailiff. She was wearing an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit from the county jail. Her hair was greasy and unkempt, and her face was gaunt with dark circles under her eyes. She had lost a significant amount of weight and bore no resemblance to the arrogant girl who had thrown water on me. She kept her head bowed, refusing to look at anyone, especially me. Her parents were there, huddled in the back row of the gallery. Her mother was weeping silently into a tissue, while her father stared blankly ahead, his face a mask of shame and exhaustion. The trial began. The prosecutor laid out the facts in a clear, methodical voice. The defendant, Wendy Young, harboring resentment from a previous incident, chose not to reflect on her actions, but to escalate the conflict. She actively sought out and conspired with known criminals with the intent of causing grievous bodily harm to the victim, Leo Vance, specifically instructing them to break his leg. Her actions constitute a clear and malicious case of solicitation to commit a felony, demonstrating a profound disregard for the law and for human safety. During the evidence presentation, the prosecutor submitted the police reports, my medical evaluation confirming no injuries, and the damning audio recording. When Wendy's hateful shriek, "Get him! Break his leg!" echoed through the silent courtroom, a shocked murmur went through the gallery. Her mother let out a choked sob. "Ms. Young," the judge asked, "do you dispute any of this evidence?" Wendy trembled, her head sinking lower. No objections," she whispered. "Do you admit that you instructed two individuals to harm Leo Vance?" "I admit it." Her voice was barely audible. The judge then turned to me. Mr. Vance, do you have a final statement? I rose to my feet, my gaze sweeping over Wendy before I addressed the judge. Your Honor, members of the jury, Wendy Young and our classmates. There was no deep-seated feud between us. When she initially defamed me, I chose to involve the police because I trusted the legal system to uncover the truth and clear my name. The law rendered its judgment on that matter. I paused, my voice steady. I had hoped she would learn from that experience. I never imagined that instead of remorse, she would harbor such intense resentment that she would resort to hiring criminals to violently assault me. If I hadn't been fortunate enough to know how to defend myself, I could be in a hospital right now, perhaps with a permanent disability. I glanced at Wendy again. Her shoulders were shaking violently. My insistence on pursuing these charges is not born from a desire for personal revenge. It is because her actions represent a fundamental threat to a safe and civil society. If a person can hire thugs to settle a grudge today, what might they do tomorrow? The law must deliver a clear and unambiguous message that such behavior will not be tolerated. That is all. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. My statement had been logical and dispassionate, which only made it more powerful. Wendy's public defender made a last-ditch effort, citing her youth, her impulsive mistake, her lack of a mature understanding of consequences, and the fact that she had already been punished by expulsion. He pleaded for leniency, but against the cold, hard facts and the chilling audio evidence, his words were meaningless. After a short recess, the judge returned to deliver the verdict. The defendant, Wendy Young, has been found guilty of solicitation to commit aggravated assault. The evidence is clear and incontrovertible. While the court notes that no physical harm ultimately occurred and the defendant has shown some remorse, the severity and malicious intent of the crime cannot be overlooked. Therefore, this court sentences the defendant, Wendy Young, to 1 year and 6 months in state prison. The gavel fell with a sharp, final crack. No, please no. Wendy let out a desperate cry, her legs buckling beneath her. The bailiff had to hold her up. In the gallery, her mother began to wail. I watched, my face impassive, as they led her away. In that moment, a profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. I had come back from the dead to demand justice for the life she had destroyed. Justice may have been delayed by a lifetime, but had finally arrived. The humiliation and death I had suffered in my past life were now being paid for with her freedom. The shadows of the past had finally lifted. My future was just beginning. Chapter 8 time has a way of sanding down the sharp edges of the past. Wendy Young's name faded from campus gossip, eventually becoming a vague cautionary tale that freshmen might hear during orientation. My life, unshackled from the chains of a ruined reputation, flourished. I poured my energy into my studies. With the knowledge of my past life and the drive of my new one, my grades were consistently at the top of my class. Graduation season arrived, bringing with it a bittersweet mix of nostalgia and ambition. The university auditoriums were packed for job fairs hosted by major corporations. The day of Nexus Dynamics recruitment event, the hall was standing room only. The global tech giant, a Fortune 500 company, was the dream destination for every engineering student. I sat in the audience, dressed in a sharp, well-fitting suit, listening confidently as the recruiters spoke of company culture and innovation. My resume was a testament to my hard work. Top grades, key roles in award-winning projects, and a portfolio that spoke for itself. A week later, I received an offer letter from Nexus Dynamics for a position as a development engineer in their core AI division. The news spread through my department like wildfire. Holy crap. Nexus Dynamics. Leo, you're a legend. Dinner is on you. A really expensive one. Dude, seriously, hook me up with an internship referral once you're settled. Jake was even more excited than I was, clapping me on the back so hard I nearly fell over. Ha ha! I knew it. My boy's headed for the big leagues. Emily sent me a text. Congratulations. You earned it. So happy for you. The Nexus Dynamics headquarters was a gleaming skyscraper of glass and steel, a monument to the future. I hit the ground running. My solid technical skills, combined with a maturity and foresight that belied my age, allowed me to stand out immediately. A few months in, a major optimization project I led was launched with incredible success. I earned the respect of my colleagues and superiors. My probationary period was cut short, and I received a substantial bonus. I had finally made it. One weekend, a group of us from college got together to celebrate landing our first jobs. We booked a private room at a trendy new gastropub downtown. When I arrived, the party was already in full swing. Jake, Emily, and a dozen other familiar faces were there. Everyone had changed, shedding their student awkwardness for a sharper, more professional edge. "Well, look what the cat dragged in. Our Fortune 500 hotshot," Jake yelled, greeting me with a friendly punch to the shoulder. "It's impossible to get a hold of you these days." I laughed and returned the gesture. "Like you're not buried in spreadsheets at that investment bank. How's life?" "The hours are brutal, but the bonuses are sweet," he said with a grin. Emily smiled and poured me a beer. "Stop humble bragging, you too. How are you liking Nexus, Leo?" "It's great. Incredibly challenging, but I'm learning a ton," I said, taking the glass. The night wore on, filled with good food, laughter, and stories about horrible bosses and nostalgic college memories. Inevitably, someone brought up the name that had been buried for years. It was a girl who had always been a class gossip. She took a sip of her wine and said with a dramatic sigh, "Hey, do you guys ever wonder what happened to, you know, Wendy Young?" A brief, awkward silence fell over the table. Another guy spoke up. "I heard something from a friend whose cousin works in the state correction system. Apparently, when he couldn't handle the transition from college student to inmate, she couldn't adapt to prison life, couldn't handle the bullying and isolation. She had a complete psychotic break, got diagnosed with severe schizophrenia, and was transferred to a state forensic psychiatric hospital for treatment." Wow, that's dark. From a top university to a mental hospital. What a waste. Goes to show, you can't let hate consume you. "I almost feel sorry for her," someone murmured. "Sorry for her?" Jake scoffed. "No way. She brought it all on herself. If Leo didn't know how to fight, she would have had his leg broken. There's nothing to feel sorry about." Emily sighed softly and looked at me. "He's right. You really went through hell back then, Leo. It's amazing to see you doing so well now." All eyes turned to me, filled with a gentle curiosity. I swirled the amber liquid in my glass, watching the light play in it. After a moment of silence, I looked up, my expression calm and clear. "There's nothing left to say, really," I said, my voice even. "She chose her path, and I chose mine. It just proves that no matter what you're going through, there are lines you don't cross. When you challenge the basic rules of law and morality, you have to be prepared to pay the price." My words put a definitive end to the topic. There was no false pity, no victors gloating, just the quiet acceptance of a chapter that was well and truly closed. We all raised our glasses. The clinking sound was crisp and final, washing away the last dregs of the past. After the dinner, I turned down an invitation for a second round and took an Uber home alone. Standing at the floor-to-ceiling window of my high-rise apartment, I looked out at the sprawling, glittering expanse of the city below. The streams of traffic were like rivers of light flowing beneath my feet. My phone buzzed. It was an email from Nexus HR, informing me that I had been selected for the company's Future Leaders Program, a fast-track initiative for high-potential new hires. I put the phone down, a small, confident smile on my lips. I had been reborn. I had crawled back from hell, cleared my name, punished the wicked, and through my own strength and determination, had earned a place I had only dreamed of, and I was still climbing. Wendy Young had met her fate. I was finally completely free. My fetiere was in my hands. It was limitless. I picked up a glass of water from the table and raised it to the vast, star-dusted night sky. This time, the water wasn't a weapon of humiliation. It was a toast to myself and to a new life, perfectly executed and entirely my own. End of story.